When we look back at the nearly 2 decades we spend in the education system, from those first hesitant steps into preschool to the final march across the graduation stage, we realize it is a vast structure built to equip us with knowledge. We learn history, mathematics, literature, and the complex structures of the world around us. We are taught to absorb, to recall, and in many ways, to conform to a standardized way of thinking. But if you are listening to this now, you have likely stepped into the real world and felt that subtle, jarring disconnect. The world beyond the classroom walls operates by a different set of rules. It asks questions that algebra cannot answer and presents challenges that no textbook could have fully prepared us for. There is a whole curriculum, a vital education in life, money, and self-management that was somehow left off the syllabus. We become adults armed with degrees and certifications, yet we often feel unprepared for the quiet, consistent realities of simply living well. This is where we begin today. Welcome to the Wealth Up Hub, where visionary mindsets turn into real wealth actions. Your future self thanks you. Today we are going to lean into that realization. We are going to calmly and reflectively examine the 7 most crucial things that the school system, globally, often fails to teach us, and why mastering them is the real foundation of a thriving, well-adjusted adult life. Settle in, perhaps with a cup of tea, and let's explore the missing curriculum. 1. The mastery of context, street smart versus book smart. The formal education system is brilliant at creating what we call book smart individuals. These are the people who can perfectly recite the dates of historical conflicts, name the Latin species of a tropical plant, or solve a differential equation. For years, the mantra was simple: memorize the text, reproduce it accurately, and you will succeed. This system, however, often unintentionally locks down our essential capacity for critical thought. The real world, however, demands street-smart individuals. The difference lies not in what you know, but in how you use what you know. A book-smart person knows the theoretical market principles. A street-smart person knows when a theory must be bent or broken to fit the current reality. Consider the famous investing adage: be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. This is a profound, seemingly simple principle of contrarian investing. But in the real world, you might also hear, don't catch a falling knife. One tells you to buy low, be greedy. The other tells you to wait for stability, don't catch the knife. Which is the right action? The book can tell you both theories are true. The street smart mind, the critical mind, is the one that assesses the current context, the level of fear, the quality of the underlying asset, the long-term outlook, and makes a decision. It's about cultivating judgment. Cultivating this judgment requires us to shift from passive absorption to active questioning. We must ask, why is this true? What is the counter-argument? And how does this principle apply right now to my situation? This level of inquiry transforms knowledge from static data into a dynamic tool. It is the single most important skill for navigating the vast, often contradictory, information landscape of the modern world, protecting us from scams, misinformation, and intellectual laziness. 2. Mapping the modern income landscape. Our education system was largely designed for the industrial age, to prepare cogs for a massive machine. The career path presented was often linear: graduate, join a large, respectable corporation, and climb the ladder. And yet, the world of work today is a vibrant, decentralized kaleidoscope. In the past, the only successful alumni invited back to speak were often those who had achieved the classic corner office success. We rarely, if ever, saw discussions led by the pioneering individuals who built their income through non-traditional means: the successful independent content creators, the ethical hackers securing systems, the high-skill freelancers, or the entrepreneurs who built small, impactful lifestyle businesses. This omission leaves an entire generation blind to the true range of income opportunities available. When we are only exposed to the concept of a single, fixed salary, a gaji, we limit our imagination and our potential for financial resilience. Furthermore, the discussion of money and income is often still shrouded in a needless cultural taboo. People want to earn more. They aspire to financial freedom, But when faced with a discussion of high-earning jobs or the effort required, a reflexive judgment often appears. That's too much work, or that's not a real job. If in our formative years we were clearly shown that income can come from multiple sources, salaries, investments, side projects, intellectual property, and creative endeavors, we would approach our education differently. We would identify the necessary skills for a desirable path and proactively seek mentorship and knowledge. We would ask the important questions. What skills are truly in demand? What knowledge gaps must I fill to stand out? And who are the mentors who can guide me? The key here is open-mindedness and exploration. The information about these non-traditional paths is abundant, especially online. But the mindset, the courage to view an independent path as viable and respectable, is the necessary lesson we must teach ourselves. 3. The art of connection, communication skills. We are taught to write persuasive essays and deliver structured presentations, yet we often miss the fundamental, practical alchemy of connecting with another human being. Communication is not just about the words we speak, it is the currency of influence, opportunity, and personal well-being. Consider the simple yet high-stakes scenario of negotiating a raise or a promotion. It's not enough to be good at your job. You must be able to articulate your value, quantify your contributions, and present a reasoned case for why your compensation must increase. This requires a delicate balance of confidence, clarity, and diplomacy. If you cannot effectively convey your worth, the world will likely value you less. Think also of the crucial social moments: meeting a future employer, conversing with a potential partner's family, or simply selling an idea, be it a product, a service, or a creative concept. In the crowded marketplace of ideas, having a brilliant idea is only half the battle. The other half is mastering the ability to compel people to care about it. A lack of communication skill creates profound barriers. It prevents brilliant ideas from taking root. It leads to misunderstandings in personal relationships. It makes the simplest transaction feel awkward. The good news is that this skill is not innate. It is cultivated. Whether through deliberate practice in social settings, joining discussion groups, or seeking coaching, the path to improvement is always available. The goal is to move beyond simply reciting information and into the realm of truly influencing understanding and action. 4. The quiet power of presence, self-presentation. This point, which often gets reduced to surface-level commentary, is actually a lesson in self-respect in the psychology of first impressions. We are not talking about superficial vanity, but rather the quiet, undeniable power of thoughtful self-presentation. The world is designed to make initial assessments based on visible cues. This is an unavoidable truth of human psychology. While deep down, we know that character, work ethic, and loyalty are what truly matter, those qualities are revealed over time. What opens the door to that time is the first impression. The lesson here is not about conforming to any particular standard of beauty, but about the baseline of competence, cleanliness, and care. When we take pride in our physical self, our hygiene, the care of our skin, the neatness of our attire, we are sending a clear, silent message to the world. I respect myself, and I respect the environment I am entering. For instance, the conversation around skincare is really a conversation about routine, consistency, and a recognition that the presentation of the self is part of the professional and personal toolkit. It is about being clean, smelling pleasant, and looking put together enough that your physical presence does not become a distraction from your competence. It is an act of proactive self-management that signals reliability. This is not a matter of luxury. It is a fundamental social and professional necessity that unlocks opportunities. Only after the initial signal of competence and care is received will the world pause to discover the depth of your kindness, your dedication, and your intelligence. 5. The silent language of money, financial literacy. This is perhaps the most egregious gap in the modern curriculum, one that affects every single person, regardless of their background or eventual profession. We are taught complex equations, yet we are left to fend for ourselves when it comes to the simple arithmetic of personal finance. No one teaches us about the critical difference between assets and liabilities. No one explains the magic and the danger of compound interest, how it can either build monumental wealth or crush us under a mountain of credit card debt. We are never given a mandatory class on budgeting, the importance of an emergency fund, or the simple but revolutionary concept of paying yourself first. Because of this profound lack of knowledge, countless individuals, even those with high incomes, are susceptible to financial fragility. And this knowledge gap is the primary reason people fall victim to investment scams. When the only financial instruction we receive is, put your money in a bank, or save it under your mattress, any sophisticated-sounding, high-return scheme, often called a bodong, or fraudulent scheme in many cultures, can sound plausible. Without the foundational knowledge of risk, due diligence, and realistic returns, people chase fantasy and lose reality. The key lesson is to treat money as a tool, not a mystery. It requires a dedicated, consistent effort to learn. Budgeting, understanding where every currency unit goes. Saving, defining financial dreams and linking savings to those goals. Investing, learning the simple global instruments like low-cost index funds that represent ownership in real productive companies. This is the knowledge that truly levels the playing field. Financial literacy is not reserved for those who study economics. It is a survival skill for every adult on the planet. 6. Navigating the civic maze, taxes and bureaucracy. No matter where you live in the world, the moment you become a fully participating adult, you encounter bureaucracy. You must file taxes, renew documents, register vehicles, apply for permits, and interact with government agencies. Yet our civic education often stops at the theory, you must pay your taxes or you must have a license. It rarely extends to the practical, step-by-step guidance. What forms must be filled out? Where do I go first? What documents must I prepare? What are my rights as a citizen? This lack of explicit, process-oriented instruction leads to universal frustration and, in many regions, a dependence on middlemen or, worse, the temptation to engage in corruption simply to bypass the confusion and slowness. People often pay others or even pay bribes, not because they are criminals, but because the system is designed to be opaque, and they lack the confidence and clarity to navigate it themselves. The essential lesson here is civic self-advocacy. This means taking the time to research the correct legal process, understanding the basic tax structure in your jurisdiction, knowing how to access and utilize official online portals, demanding clear, transparent service from government offices. It is about realizing that while bureaucracy is universally frustrating, mastering its processes is a necessary component of an independent and ethical life. The goal is to demystify these mandatory civic duties so they no longer hold the power of an unknown maze. 7. Unlocking the inner dialogue. Taboo subjects. Finally, we arrive at the most intimate and arguably the most vital area of the missing curriculum, the discussion of things deemed taboo. This includes the complex realities of mental health, emotional stress, the language of the body, and sexual health. For generations in many cultures, these topics were swept under the rug, treated as subjects too delicate, too inappropriate, or too personal for open, educational discourse. This silence, however, has a heavy cost. When we encounter normal human experiences like stress, anxiety, or depression, when we feel overwhelmed, or when we notice an unexplained change in our body, we lack the language and the framework to discuss it comfortably. We fear being judged as weak, weird, or strange, leading us to suffer in silence. The things that are most necessary to discuss, the things that cause internal distress, become the very things we are most afraid to mention. The post-pandemic world has seen a global awakening to the profound importance of mental health. The lesson we must internalize is that asking for help is not a sign of failure. It is an act of self-awareness and strength. It is crucial for us to learn emotional literacy, the ability to accurately name and understand our feelings, stress, burnout, anxiety, etc. Boundaries, the skill of saying no and protecting our time and energy without guilt. The power of vulnerability, understanding that sharing your struggle creates connection, not isolation. When we normalize the discussion of our interior lives, we create safer communities and healthier selves. The things that are often considered the most taboo are usually the most important for discussion, for they relate to the core of our humanity and well-being. As we bring this reflection to a close, let's take a moment to distill the essence of these 7 untaught but necessary lessons. It can often feel overwhelming to realize how much we had to teach ourselves. But the beautiful truth is that self-education is the ultimate act of empowerment. It means your success is truly yours. We've covered a lot of ground today, touching upon the intellectual, the professional, the financial, and the deeply personal realms of life. Here is a simple distillation of the real-world curriculum, the 7 foundational lessons missing from the standard curriculum. The ability to use knowledge in context, prioritizing critical judgment over rote memorization, an awareness of the modern, decentralized income landscape, and a willingness to discuss money openly. The skill of communication, which is the necessary bridge between a brilliant idea and its successful realization. The practice of thoughtful self-presentation as an act of self-respect and professionalism. A foundational literacy in personal finance, budgeting, compounding, and avoiding investment fraud. The knowledge and confidence to navigate civic bureaucracy and advocate for oneself. An open, courageous dialogue about emotional and mental health, breaking the costly silence of taboo. Remember, fortune may come from things beyond our control, but what is in our control is the action we take today. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because like and subscribe are in your hands. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one. The Wealth Up Hub, level up your wealth.